Harold the Helicopter is for me one of the most iconic Thomas characters. Everything from his unique design to his distinctly different sounding voice that both Ringo Starr and Michael Angelis gave him, Harold really does feel like a standout character, which is why I'm always so shocked that it wasn't always like this. Harold was once no more than a minor Railway series character who barely appeared, who transformed into a TV series character who rarely appeared, and then evolved into a character who is instantly recognisable and one of the mainstays of the Thomas franchise. But how did this happen? Hello, you're watching Can You See Fish? And today, we'll find out. Harold was first introduced in 1956 with the 11th book of the Railway series, Percy the Small Engine, of which his main role was in the story Percy and Harold, which was a sort of rehash of the Thomas and Bertie story, where a steam engine and a non-rail entity have a race and of course the supposedly out-of-date steam engine comes out on top. Later in the book, he is cemented as an ally to Percy in his non-speaking role in Percy's Promise. Harold would then be absent for 30 years before reappearing for his final speaking role in the books with Tank Engine Thomas again in the story The Runaway.
Quickly, the inspector climbed aboard Harold and they took off. "I must get there in time, I must," he whirred anxiously.
This would then be followed up in 1992 with a non-speaking role in Thomas Comes Home's Snow Problem, and until his final appearance as a cameo in 1995's Thomas and the Fat Controller's Engines' Rabbits. So throughout the Railway series, similarly to characters like Terence, Harold had one iconic story with him in a lead role before then never appearing again in any of the Reverend's books, and then only a few times in Chris's books. So how did this nothing character who could be described as obscure become so well known? Simple answer, the TV series. Both Percy and Harold and The Runaway were adapted as part of Series 2, with the latter being specifically commissioned by Brittlecroft as a means of including the chopper in another story. In both of these episodes, Harold maintains the same role he had in the Railway series, and also has a non-speaking role in Thomas and the Missing Christmas Tree, a companion book to the Railway series that had also featured Harold in a minor role.
Then there was a familiar whirring sound. Percy and Toby smiled. They knew who it was. With landing lights shining brightly, Harold the Helicopter touched down gently in the snow.
It was clear from the beginning that Britt liked Harold, most likely for the element of diversity that he brought to the cast of the series. This is most evident in Series 3, because in 3 of the original stories by Britt and David this season that were adapted from magazine stories by Andrew Brenner, Harold appears in a fairly sizable role with notable screen time. It's also worth mentioning that in this season's adaptation of Percy's Promise, Harold was not only given an extra scene, but was also given a speaking role that wasn't present in the original book. As more faithful adaptations once again took centre stage in Series 4, Harold only appeared once with a speaking role in the episode Trucks that, you guessed it, wasn't in the original story and was added by the TV crew. Now it could be said that at this point Harold was still a fairly minor secondary character, but the next 3 series of the show would amend that. Series 5 featured Harold in 6 episodes, with him speaking in 4 of them and still having a named role in the other 2. This season also gave us the sing-along song called Harold the Helicopter that further expanded his notoriety to fans. Between Series 5 and 6, Harold was the only pre-established character not to be introduced in Series 1, who was given a named and speaking role in the final cut of Thomas and the Magic Railroad before the 6th series would be released in 2002. In this one, Harold didn't have much of a role, but in both of his episodes the writers chose to expand on his friendship with Percy, particularly in a very heartwarming and wholesome scene at the end of A Bad Day for Harold the Helicopter, which also featured his first on-screen crash.
He could hear. "Thanks for getting help to pull me out of that haystack, dear chap," he said. "That's all right," said Percy. "That's what friends are for."
But then, after taking more of a backseat in Series 6, the 7th season would once again go back to pushing Harold, giving him another episode where he's the main character, cameo roles in Best Dressed Engine and Emily's New Coaches as a regular at Dryore Airfield, a non-speaking role in the grand opening that incites the rest of the story to happen, and most notably, for me at least, a spoken line in the final episode of the classic era, 3 Cheers for Thomas. Harold would then appear occasionally in the hit model era, although this lack of in-episode promotion was kind of made up for with plenty of merchandise during this part of the show's history. He barely appears in Series 12 and only shows up in a deleted scene from Series 11, making the 11th season the first since its introduction to not feature Harold in an episode, but all of that would change with the switch to CGI. Harold didn't appear in Hero of the Rails, nor in Series 13, but as soon as he showed up as a returning character in Misty Island Rescue as a member of the newly established search and rescue team, many fans knew that Harold wouldn't be going anywhere. Series 14, 5 episodes, Series 15, 9 episodes, and Series 16, 4 episodes once again. I think that the Nitrogen era of the show once again firmly morphed Harold into the main character that many fans had recognised him as since the classic era, through giving him copious amounts of roles and cameos in these CGI episodes. Andrew Brenner would continue to use him from Series 17 to 21, following his takeover as head writer, and Harold would even appear fairly frequently with speaking roles in Series 23 and 24 of the Big World Big Adventures era. Truly a legacy that is, like Harold, sky high. I hope that you've enjoyed this deep dive into the history of Harold the Helicopter. If you have, don't forget to drop a like below and subscribe to the channel to see more content like it. You've been watching Can You See Fish? And until next time, goodbye.